Welcome to Faith with Flavor, the place to be to season and encourage your faith. I'm your host, Donna Clayton. Today we're going to sit down with contemporary Christian music singer Jaime Grace. She will share how she got discovered and what it was like for her growing up with Tourette's syndrome. We will also get to watch her latest music video entitled Here. But first, I recently got the chance to speak at the Live Again Women's Kickoff Conference in Orange County, California. Take a look at what the salsa cameras captured. Crowds of women gathered at the Life Center Church in Santa Ana for the Live Again Women's Kickoff Conference.
The Lord led me here, I saw the conference online and I wanted to be a part of it, and God was just speaking to my life,
The whole point of this conference to live again, and they shared it repeatedly. Every speaker spoke about it and how when we get lost in the desert of life that we have to return to our Maker and go back and seek Him, find Him, spend time with Him, and to really hear His voice.
I just thought that was so cool to hear that other people are going through what I was going through, and I'm not alone.
And nobody felt alone because every speaker shared a message straight from their heart.
Pastor Stephanie spoke today about back to square one, and that was her message. This is where we're supposed to be because we're on a new direction and a new path, and that's why I made those past changes, because I wanted a new direction on a new path, so I needed to look at it differently again. So I'm back to square one, but at a better place.
And some of you are still living with some guilt from those decisions that you made, but our God is bigger than your bad decision.
God spoke through me, through Pastor Teresa, reminding us that we should always remember to go back to the one thing that you first fell in love with, and that was Christ.
So God is a God. We could breathe the word of God. We could speak the word of God, and it breathes life into those that need it. And that's all of us. We all need it, right?
The message was live again, being buried alive, and also just take everything back that you came from, whether you were buried in the past. It was given by Pastor Francisca.
He said, look at my son. The sin of the world was placed on him. He didn't deserve that. Some of you didn't deserve it.
I really liked when Donna was talking about how she was talking to this guy.
I want you to depend on God so much that you learn to listen to His voice. That when the enemy comes in, that you don't obey the enemy, that you don't turn that way, you don't listen to your neighbor, you listen to God. You have a direct connection with the Heavenly Father. Amen?
If you just started tuning into the show, that was a look at what took place at the Life Center Church for the Live Again Women's Conference. And stay tuned for Pray Salsa Style because we will be airing this entire women's conference very, very soon. And now, without further ado, let's meet contemporary Christian artist Jaime Grace. Jaime,
hi,
welcome to Faith with Flavor.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love, it's so girly and colorful, and I feel like I wore the right hair extensions for the, I try to match the colors. So
you totally did. It was the Lord who was speaking through you. But you know what? I am such a fan of yours.
Thank you so
and
much.
I can't help but be a little bit starstruck that you're here.
That's really kind of you. Thank you so much. I love singing songs, and the fact that you know a couple, that's really cool.
I do, yeah. You're very talented. So, but I want to get into your story, because we all are dying to know. How were you raised? What was it like growing up for Jaime Grace?
Yeah, I was born in Los Angeles. My family, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, Stone Mountain, Lithonia, a small town, when I was about 1 year old. And so I grew up in Georgia, in the South, with my mom and dad, pastors of a small church, and my older sister, Morgan. And I've had a pretty, typical childhood for a Southern kid, preacher's kid, homeschooled, one sister, that kind of typical lifestyle. But I did, when I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, OCD, ADHD, and anxiety. And it just brought a lot of challenges for me personally, and then also for my family. And so I grew up with an understanding very early of what it meant to trust God and be resilient and kind of tough it out even when it's hard. So
wow, I love that. And I want you to dig deep in that for a second, because I think we all have our own struggles that we deal with. It might not be as severe, as some of the things that you face, but I mean, we all have struggles. How did God show you to trust in Him with all of that?
Right, yeah. So one thing about me, and I think this is true for a lot of people, and not to be stereotypical, but for a lot of women especially, like I like to know things that are gonna work out. I don't like to say that I'm controlling. I just like to say that I like to organize and plan, and I thrive in a structured environment. And so that's just kind of how my brain works. But the very core of my condition, Tourette's syndrome, it actually means that I make movements and sounds that I can't control. And so talking about it always makes it worse. So just even my fidgeting now and all of that stuff. And so I find it ironic that my personality says I want structure, I want to control and to fix things, and my brain wiring literally is like, you can't control things. And it really, really taught me how to trust in Jesus. And I'm so glad that I have that, but that doesn't mean that it didn't come without struggle. There were definitely years in my life and still moments in my life now where I dealt with so much fear and pain and frustration because things weren't working out and because things were so difficult and because things were so hard. And to the point where I just found myself laid out on the floor so many times just crying out to God. And those moments, they didn't always end in, oh, Jesus, you're the best, let's move on. Sometimes they ended in, I'm gonna be here for 3 more weeks. It's hard, it's difficult, life is really hard, but I'm just thankful that I have the parents that I have and the sister that I have that continue to invest in me and love on me and encourage me and somehow help me turn out to be this now.
And I love that you're being so real about it, because that's really the heart of the show is, real stories, real people going through real things, and it's not an easy thing to face. But, we live in a society right now where it's like, there's so much bullying going on in the world, with teens. And were you ever bullied in school?
Yeah. So it's funny because I was homeschooled, but I was still bullied because I'll say I was bullied and people are like, by who? I'm like, a bully will find you. They will come to your house. And they did. That got sad. I was bullied my entire life. And I never want to, physical bullying is a completely different world, and so I was never physically bullied, and I don't want to make it seem like I've experienced that, because some kids have gone through way worse things than I have. But emotional and verbal bullying for sure. Kids calling me retarded, mocking my tics, mocking my Tourette syndrome, and then passive aggressive, just not so kind things of just not ever being invited to parties and not being included in things. And I really had to get to a point in my life where, even in my adulthood, because I thought it would stop at adulthood, but then, you get a little bit older and it's like, I thought I should have been a bridesmaid in that wedding, or why didn't I get invited to that baby shower? It still happens in adulthood, that passive aggressive inability to know where you stand in friendships and relationships. And I really had to come to the understanding that I was created to be different. I was created to stand out. And I would much rather not fit in on this earth and get to heaven and know that's where I belong than have fit in with everyone here, because I tried so hard to be everybody's friend that when I get to the gates, the Lord's like, you don't belong. So I really had to find a contentment and okayness with being different and being the weird kid, and my sister being my best friend, and only having 2 or 3 other friends, for different seasons. And not saying it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, it's just my ever constant in my life is Jesus Christ, and that's just what I have to rely on. So yeah.
I love that. Now, tell me about your parents, because there's so many parents that watch salsa, and maybe they, are dealing with a child that's being bullied in school. How can they deal with that in a healthy way and help their children deal with it?
One thing that my parents are the best. One thing that sounded so sarcastic. I actually meant it. I love them. No, one thing that my parents were always so good about is they never really harped on the negativity. Because sometimes I would come home and I would rant about stuff that was frustrating me that happened at youth group, or that happened in a school, a class, a school group or something. I would come home and complain about it, and they never really went, well, he should have done that, and they blah, 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 blah. They always just brought me back to where it actually mattered, and they would be like, but what does God say about that? But you know your worth. How do you feel? And just always taught me, because the reality is I can't control what other people say. Like my parents like can't march down to the school and talk to every single kid and fix every problem or come up with a solution for everything. But they can remind me of my worth, and they can remind me of what God says about me, which is way more important than what other people say about me. So that for sure. And then also, I mean, my parents unashamedly checked me a lot. Like if I said that someone was rude to me, they would sometimes, you know, well, they would often say, well, did you say anything first? You know, like check me and make sure that like I was being as kind as I could, because what happens is when you're being bullied, when you're being treated that way, you oftentimes want to lash out and want to say awful things to other people or want to be rude to other people. And one thing that I was really good at was like, if someone was being mean to me, I would want to shut down and hide myself in my room and close myself off from the world. And my parents were very honest with me in saying, like, if you're going to do that, you're only perpetuating the situation. You're only victimizing yourself even more. And I was glad that they were honest with me and were like, the best way to get over this is to come to family game night and play Monopoly, even though you don't want to. Like, hiding in your room won't fix it. So, yeah, they're just very honest,
I love
great
that.
people that cook food a lot.
We love food here at Salsa.
Always thinking about food.
I love it. I want to touch on disabilities for a second. And, you know, what would you tell somebody that maybe is dealing with a disability and they feel like God can't use them because of this disability that they face? What would you say to them?
Yeah, you know, one of the cool things about the Bible is like it's so many great stories in it. And I mean, again, not to be a stereotypical girl, but we're always looking for a good story, you know, The Notebook or Safe Haven. Like we're always wanting a good story.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so many stories in the Bible of how God used the most broken people. And that is still true now. He continues to use us in our brokenness. And continues to take the very things that we think are not going to be great and use them for good. You know, it says in the Word of God, you know, His strength is made perfect in our weakness. And so I think, not that we should go out and try to be weak or try to be broken, but the weaker we are, I mean, that means that we need even more strength. And whose strength better to shine in those moments than the Lord's?
Amen.
And so, yeah, I think about, I don't know, I think about this one time I spoke at a girls' conference, and one of the issues with my Tourette's is stuttering. Every time I try to talk about it, I stutter. And then also sometimes if I get really kind of caught up, I can't talk for a few seconds. And so I was speaking at a girls' conference about being resilient and about overcoming my struggles to about 10,000 girls, and I'm on stage, and my voice just went out, and I started twitching, and I stood in dead silence in front of 10,000 girls for about 40 seconds. And I was about to start crying, and I was miserable, and I was just like, it was so awkward. And eventually I kind of took some deep breaths and got myself together. And I walked off stage and I cried in my mom's arms, and I said, Mom, that was the worst I've ever done, like on stage. I've never done such a poor job. And she looked at me and she was like, that was the best thing you've ever done, because you proved that God's strength was made perfect in your weakness. And I'm just like, yeah, you're my mom, whatever. But I'm not kidding, I still get emails about that same event to this day, because girls were like, you showed that even when it feels like your disability is going to take over, like God is gonna step in and do something that you couldn't imagine. And yeah, it's all Him. I owe it all to Him how He used, I mean, come on, if He can use this, like, I'm a hot mess. Like, if He can use this situation, He can use anybody, so.
But you know, when I look at you, I don't think of someone that has Tourette's. I mean, honestly, that's something I just read about.
Yeah.
So did God deliver you, or?
Yeah, you know, I spent so many years praying for my physical healing for Tourette's syndrome, and I thought for years that I prayed wrong, because people would say, you're not praying hard enough, you're not praying loud enough, you're not doing this right. And I spent so many years praying for my physical healing, and I do firmly believe that God is a healer, and I know that He will heal me.
Amen.
I'm not sure if it'll be today or tomorrow. It might be in heaven, I'm not sure. But I know that even if I have to live with this physical ailment for a little bit longer, there has been a healing of my heart that has been more exceptional than any physical healing that I could have asked for. To go from being borderline suicidal in middle and high school and very depressed because of all the things that I was going through, to now spend my days traveling and sharing the love of Jesus through songs and videos and stuff. I know that I have been healed. And so physically, I still have some complications, quite minor compared to when I was a kid. But my heart and my spirit have been healed in a way that only God could do.
So it's like a continual healing that God is doing, like throughout the years, right?
Right, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, you know, we see, like, you know, there's kids that have it way worse than I do, whether it's Tourette's syndrome or cancer or diabetes or epilepsy. Like, there are so many people going through things that I don't know what that's like to experience that. And my heart totally breaks for them. And I don't know God's plan. I don't know when he's going to make things great and easy and perfect. But yeah, I just trust that through it all, we can have his peace and his grace through the trials that we still face on this earth. And it'll just hold us over to heaven, which will be perfect.
Amen. Yes, it will. Let's talk about I'mAFighter.org.
Yeah, okay. So I started I'm a Fighter when I was like 14 years old. It was after I was diagnosed with all that stuff at 11, and I spent a long time just depressed and confused and just not great. And then when I was 14, I launched I'm a Fighter, which is really just a way to share stories of everyday fighters. And so we have a podcast right now, and you can go to I'mAFighter.org and get all the last episodes of the podcast. And every season of the podcast, we share 5 stories of 5 fighters. And so this coming season, it airs on March 20th, which is the start of spring. And there's this one mom who like has diabetes, and then she was diagnosed with cancer. And then there's a young girl who has cranial facial disability. I think I pronounced that correctly. And just these incredible people with these insanely amazing stories of how they are fighting and overcoming things. And then we get a little bit nerdy too, and do talk about some medical stuff and give tips for people that may have been newly diagnosed and everything. And yeah, as I started to speak about having Tourette's syndrome and things like that, I realized there were a lot of people that would email me and say, wow, you have Tourette's syndrome, well, I have asthma, and your blog helped me even though I don't even have Tourette's. And so I was like, how can I help? You know, what can I do? And so I just started reaching out to people that had inspiring stories and inviting them on the podcast. And
wow,
yeah, it's been really cool.
How
really
fun. So you have your podcast going, and if you're not busy enough, you also have the Jaime Grace Foundation.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, we launched the Jaime Grace Foundation about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm awful with time. But we launched that a while ago because I really I'm really close to my family, and I wish that everyone could have a family. I wish that everyone could have that core foundation of the people that love them and care about them, whether it's their blood family or not. And so the Jaime Grace Foundation primarily works in the state of Georgia in investing in families and investing in children's lives. And so we do a lot of stuff around the holidays, working with children in foster care on Thanksgiving and Christmas to make sure they're taken care of. Also with my home church back in Stone Mountain, Georgia, my parents are missionary pastors. So they fly back and forth from Cali to Georgia to serve there when they can. And so we work with a lot of the kids in the Stone Mountain area as well to make sure that they're taken care of and they've eaten and things like that. And so it's a really cool opportunity just to be able to like love on people and serve people. And we do like a few events every year to like specifically for the foundation. And it may, like sometimes we'll take on a special project if we get an email about a fan of my music that just really, you know, is in the hospital or is going through a difficult time. But we really get to focus on children and families, primarily in Georgia, and that's really cool.
That's great. Now I want to switch gears for a second because we want to talk about your amazing music.
Oh, well.
And I love it, and I'm such a fan of yours. But
thank you.
Did you always know that that's what you were going to do, like growing up?
You know, growing up, I wanted to be a singer, and this was a very specific one, but I wanted to be a circus trainer, but only for monkeys. I wanted to work with monkeys. I love monkeys so much. So mostly Planet of the Apes. I wanted to do that. I also wanted to be an astronaut and an actress. I wanted to be like Amanda Bynes in the 90s. And so, yeah, I had a lot of goals and dreams, but as I got older, I realized that what I really wanted to do was spread joy to other people, share joy with people. Because when you feel it, when you've experienced the joy of the Lord, you cannot help but want to share it with other people. Amen. And so singing just became an avenue of that. So with my YouTube channel that I started kind of around the same time of I'm a Fighter, I just had this new kind of passion for life. And just started sharing singing videos on YouTube and monologues and different characters and acting and all that stuff. And eventually it led into tour opportunities and album opportunities. And it's just, I guess I I don't know if I really always knew I wanted to be a singer. I mean, I always knew that I enjoyed singing when I was like 7 and seeing people's faces, like seeing them experience joy. Like when I was singing, I was like, ooh, this is cool. I like this. So I still get that feeling.
You have such an amazing voice, and we actually have your latest single here, you guys. A little treat for you. Take a look at Jaime Grace's latest single entitled Here. Watch this.
Swimming, I was wondering if you were here. I saw all the lights were flashing, must be an emergency, dear. I don't even know if you hear me. I don't even know where you've gone. Sometimes when I close my eyes and wonder, I can't help but feel that I'm alone. I was calling out to you and you said, I'm right here. Swimming, I was wondering if you were here. It's getting dark and in my heart, all that I can feel is fear. You told me that you never ever leave me, and I know that you never ever lie. But sometimes when you're teaching me to trust you, it's too hard to swallow all my pride. See, I was calling out to you and you said, I'm right. Never gonna leave, no, 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 no. Said you're never gonna leave me. Never gonna leave me. Never gonna leave, no, 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 no. Said you're never gonna leave me. Never gonna leave me. Never gonna leave, no, 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 no. Said you're never gonna leave me. Never gonna leave, no, 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 no. Said you're never gonna leave me. Never gonna leave me. Right here. You told me don't you ever fear. No matter when I call, you tells me I'm right here. Right here. Oh, don't you know I'm here? No matter when I call, you tell me I'm right here. Never gonna leave, no. Said you're never gonna leave, no, 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 no. Said you're never gonna leave me, no, no.
If you just started tuning into Faith with Flavor, today I am sitting down with contemporary Christian artist Jaime Grace, and that was her latest music video entitled Here. What a beautiful song.
Thank you.
I
That
love
was my
it.
sister. She's
You
my
guys are
favorite.
jamming out over there.
Oh,
But tell me
thank
about
you.
your inspiration for this song.
Yeah, so I wrote Here when I was still living in Georgia, like 2 years ago. I actually remember exactly when like the exact moment, which is very rare. But I was having a really difficult time. I was just in a place where I felt like I was never gonna make music again, and I felt like it was taking forever for things to work out and for me to understand things. And I was really just going through a really difficult time. My mom was really sick, and my mom's health is the reason we moved to California. So it was right before all of that, and I was just really in a not great place. And I was very angry at God, and I remember I was actually on my way to the gym, which I was like, this will be a good place to get some of my anger out. So I was on my way to the gym, and I'm literally walking to my garage, and I was like, I was thinking, I was swimming. Oh, that's a a good song. Like, and I wrote it driving to the gym, like crying my eyes out, and then I was just singing it the whole time on the treadmill, just like, I don't even know if you hear me. Also, that's not how I run on the treadmill, by the way. I haven't been to the gym in a while. So,
but you know what? I have some amazing times at the gym myself with God.
Like feelings, they happen at the gym.
Right?
And so my sister, Morgan Harper Nichols, is the most like eloquent and inspiring human in the world. And so I made her sing on it with me. I was like, you're singing on the song. And she should have just done the whole thing. But no, it's thank you. I appreciate that. That song was fun to make.
I love it. I want you to look into that camera for me, Jaime, and just encourage somebody that feels like their disability or whatever they're facing in their lives at this very moment is keeping them from fulfilling all that God has for them.
Right, yeah.
Would you just encourage them right now?
No, definitely, yeah. It can be so easy to feel like you're not, like you don't matter and like your voice doesn't matter and that no matter what you say, no one will hear it. Maybe that's not how you feel, but I know that I have felt that way many a times. But I know that ultimately at the end of it all, like we were all created by the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords for a purpose and for a reason. And if there's breath in your lungs right now, then there's a purpose and there's a reason as to why you're here. And so I would just encourage you to know that God is with you. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. And the plan and the purpose that he has for your life is real and beautiful and incredible. So get plugged into a local church, read the word, pray a lot, talk to your parents or your pastors, mentors, teachers, some strong, older, Christian, wiser, great people that make good food. Get to talking to them, spending some time with them, get involved in your church, pray, sing some worship music, and really dig into what it is that God has for your life, because it's great, I promise.
Amen. Well said, girl.
Oh, thank you.
If someone would like to get in touch with you or learn more about your music, where can they go?
Of course, all the social medias, of course. At Jaime Grace H on Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff. JaimeGrace.com for tour dates and everything. And then if you ever just want to watch a bunch of crazy YouTube videos, just type in Jaime Grace on YouTube. And there's 12 years of craziness, so there's that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jaime. It's been such an honor to have you.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
And thank you at home for watching Faith with Flavor. I pray that this show has blessed you in a special way. And if it did, I would love to know your comments. Please find me at lifewithdonna.com and email me your thoughts. And I want to leave you with a little word of encouragement for today. You know, 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So take heart in that no matter what you face today, our God is bigger than your circumstances, and there is no mountain that is too high for him to climb and rescue you. God bless you. I'll see you next time.